Welcome back to the Fixed Ops Roundtable. The big names in Recon are here. Dennis McGinn and Josh DeYoung with Rapid Recon. Dennis and Josh, welcome back to the Fixed Ops Roundtable.
Thank you, Ted.
Glad to be back, Ted. Thank you so much.
Gentlemen, an exciting space to be. Josh, you and I and Dennis were chatting in the green room. It seems like so much right now is focused on the recon space. So much in our industry. It's an awareness that seems to have happened overnight, yet I know it's taken many, many years. But Josh, I know you see it directly with the stuff that you and Dennis are working on.
Yeah, I mean, I think the focus is higher than it's ever been. The dealer groups and dealers that you probably haven't heard from very much are really getting more interested in understanding the space and understanding where they can help themselves. And bottlenecks and understanding where those bottlenecks are really the challenges that most people are having. And we say this a lot. And Dennis and you have heard this, Ted. The reality is if you don't have a piece of technology verifying it, right, and putting it in front of you, it's kind of hard to know that it's there, right? And that's what we do, and that's what we do really, really well. And so it's a hot topic, like you said, and there's a lot of buzz.
And Dennis, you've talked about it for a long time. It's the biggest opportunity, and it's better visibility for the general manager. I'm almost quoting you on that.
Yes.
Talk to us about that and the bottlenecks and finding them faster.
Oh, don't let me stop talking about it. Well, so I'm really lucky. I got into this rapid recon thing 15 years ago when everybody thought, hey, we don't have a problem reconditioning, and because they didn't want to face it, and here we are 15 years later, and everybody's got a problem with reconditioning, including the ones that are using rapid recon, because it's easy for them to kind of just get into their routine and forget about the fact that they only got part way there. And so I see a huge opportunity and great frustration at the GM level because their job is almost impossible anyway. I mean, you got to hand it to these guys that survive as general managers who are they can't decide between uh, following up with what their bosses want them to do, their groups, their OEMs, their wife, their girl or girlfriend, and their reconditioning and how to make decent amount of money in this economic situation. And no question about it. So it's softening up again. Q1 of this year is just came out. It's continuing to be soft, and I keep circling back around to the greatest frustrations that I actually see. I hear it, but they don't like to complain about it. Nobody likes to complain in this industry about things that they can't get done. It's just the nature of everything. And the GMs are put in this situation of trying to balance and optimize things. And during a whole week, they can't do everything. They just can't do it. So they got a lot of data. Everybody's got something new. It's got AI attached to it. They got a lot of reports. And bless the few of them that get around to building a gigantic spreadsheet to try and uh, kind of bring some of the problems to the top that then they can go and tell somebody to fix it or to do something. So that's kind of where I am, and I've got a lot of ideas that have come up from a lot of people, and we can get into it here in a little bit. But I think there's some new things that are going on that are really going to help this take some pressure out of the situation, and actually maybe give GMs a little bit more headroom because they need it.
And Josh, we have to give credit where credit is due. Dennis McGinn saw this early. He had great vision on the need for recon and realizing that it was a problem and that people were not owing up to it. And look at all the opportunity it's created. And Dennis, single handedly, I think, got the whole revolution started. And so here we are today. And Josh, what are you seeing? What challenges? Like Dennis said, things changing in the industry, things tightening up. What challenges, Josh, are dealers facing today that you see out there?
I think that, complacency can be a challenge, right? Like Dennis said, some dealers have rapid recon and still have a challenge in reconditioning. We've never been the company that says, hey, listen, if you do business with rapid recon, we're going to, make you turn a wrench quicker, right? What we are going to do is we're going to identify, that the wrench is not being turned quicker. And then we can put some processes in place to help, alleviate some of that pressure. But, I think complacency can be tough. Maybe not just complacency. At the end of the day, general managers, used car directors, fixed op directors, they're trying to put out the hottest fire in front of them, right? And I think sometimes, that can turn into complacency, but the reality is they got a lot of things to juggle. And, sometimes reconditioning and the challenges in reconditioning can kind of get put in the back seat. So that's kind of where we're at today.
And Dennis, the points that you just made a few moments ago, the GMs are buried in data. Data is important, but it's short on actionable insights, and that's the key right there. I think taking action, and a lot of these bottlenecks are discovered too late, and you're really able to help them with that as part of what you do at
Yes.
Rapid Recon. You and Josh.
Yeah, I think Rapid is certainly a tool out there,
Mhm.
but it doesn't. The GMs have all delegated the reconditioning activity and to other people. I mean, and then it's out of sight, out of mind, right? We still give them all the reports that are now laid along the other reports they get from the DMS and from their inventory systems and things like that, and but then they're off troubleshooting because they're the buck stops here. So I get confused one day. I ask them, and they think their job is to be there for anything that somebody else can't handle. I mean, literally, and because that's what they've done. They've grown up to be troubleshooters, and so what I say is they don't. The strategy is to make more money and keep your people happy, right? Your customers keep customer satisfaction, and there's always a lot of employee turnover. I mean, it just is always is. So they've got to not only kind of figure out how am I going to continue to tune this ship that they're steering, but they've got to keep it stocked with good people. They always have a couple of high performers that are always wanting to needing to sell more cars to make the money, make the month. And then there are always problems that are juggling all over the place. So I guess that the big downfall I'm seeing today is the distance between a GM's ability to to delegate things effectively. And I don't mean just walking up to somebody and having a conversation and saying, "Hey, Joe, go do this and let me know when it's done." You now need, just like in reconditioning, when we started this, everybody said, "Oh, I don't have a problem." Well, they used to think they didn't have a problem with delegating and getting actionable, getting execution going, but they do. They all do now because their jobs have grown into a data sieve trying to figure things out or have people write reports for them or things so they can go back to execution. So I'm all fired up about the next opportunity for GMs is to have a life. In other words, to be able to execute and delegate and know that it's getting done without everybody running around having meetings.
So, Josh, you're meeting with a lot of dealers. You're on the road. I know that all the time. How do we meet a lot of these challenges that you gentlemen are mentioning? That word visibility, clearer visibility, keeps coming up, and accountability keeps coming up as well.
The difference between knowing what to do and doing it is called execution, right? And so I think that, ultimately it's tough pill to swallow, but you got to admit that there's a problem initially. Because if you don't admit that there's a problem, I don't care how good you think you are, or how good you are, you're not going to want to fix something that you don't think is broken. And it's tough, especially if you don't think that fire is that very hot. We talked about that earlier, but I think that's a start. And I think once you start to get the metrics and the data in front of you, I think that's when you can start to put some action items behind it. But it takes some time, right? This isn't something that's a silver bullet. This isn't something that's going to give you 30 days of data and then you can make long term or even short term decisions based on 30 days. So I think it's not a sprint, it's a marathon. And that's tough. That's tough also, right? I mean, we live in a world where it's day to day and right now. And if you don't believe me, ask my wife, right? It's called Amazon and we get things same day. So that's just the way we operate as an organization of people, right? It's not just the auto industry. So um,
You're
I
right.
think we have to look at what's in front of us, and we have to make data driven decisions based on the information that's in front of us. And I think that there's a piece of technology that can do that, and it's called Rapid Recon. So
And Josh, you're so right. Amazon, I think, has spoiled all of us as consumers, but it's expected now, right away. And Rapid has the platform that allows dealers to be able to do this and to be able to execute, as you mentioned. Dennis, what are you seeing out there as well?
Well, yeah. So yes, and from the rapid recon side of things, I think there is an enormous opportunity to get back to basics because
Yes.
we
Yeah.
provided all the reporting needed to know what the heck's going on. It's all there, but when you've got so many other things that are going on that you're troubleshooting, you tend to let somebody else worry about it. And we know that the profit per vehicle for used cars is a big factor. I mean, the whole system is geared towards getting turns on good used cars. So I think it's time for and through your support and fixed ops roundtable for us to basically yell at some of these folks saying, wait a minute, you got too many things on your plate. So you got to narrow it down to a couple things that you can actually do to execute on. Well, go back to the basics. Do you know exactly what your metrics are telling you from your reconditioning? We give them to you, and is that more important than something else? Yes.
Hmm.
You got to sell cars, and you got to be profitable. But if your reconditioning's not in place to be able to execute, get the cars, get them to the front line, get them standing tall and all that, you're going to lose that opportunity too. So I think these guys need some headroom, and focusing back on the basics in reconditioning
Love it.
is really up there in my opinion.
I like that. Going back to the basics, and John, Rapid Recon positively impacts the bottom line with a lot of things that we're talking about here. Profitability, efficiency, and most of all, improves the decision making, right? So that we can make those decisions and stay competitive.
Yeah, and yeah, I mentioned something a minute ago, just in passing, but I think the newer technology is both mind-boggling and an opportunity. And it's not an opportunity for general managers to understand how it works. I think the opportunity is for them to have something they can use that pulls all that analysis together without them having to uh, have it come from corporate building a report, and so that they can decide what are the priorities here, and to kind of put the troubleshooting aside for half a day anyway, and start thinking about the execution again. And reconditioning was there. We did that. We understand it. We understand its limits too. I mean, I will tell you, I look at the group reporting and see how in the big groups where we have, you know, hundreds of rapid recon users, it's all there in black and white. I can see that a percentage, 20 or 25% of these folks are on top of it. They know their numbers. They're continuing to improve. They have the right processes in place. The rest of them are all kind of just getting by. And if they spent the time to get back to basics and tune their processes like the best ones, they would
That's
make
right.
a lot more money and they'd have fewer headaches. I mean, at the end of the day, what you have to sell cars and you got to have them to sell. And you've got to stay ahead of your plan. You've got to be on your plan and
Mhm.
not let it all happen on the last day of the month. So that's my sense. I think there's great things out there to help them. Rapid is certainly one. I think this other thing I mentioned a minute ago is another one that can help the GMs with lots of things that go across their bow every day, of which reconditioning is one.
Josh, your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I think that Dennis hit a nail on the head. Like, we've got to get back to the basics on a lot of things, and it's just like anything. You got to block and tackle sometimes, right? You can't run the trick plays all the time, and that takes patience. And again, we have very little. So, I think that there's a lot of room for improvement, and there's a lot of things that we can gather and look at and make decisions on, and that will help everybody.
And Josh, it also speaks to the consistency, right? I mean, the blocking and tackling, the basics you gentlemen are mentioning, that's consistency, right? And that's, I think, one of the most important disciplines in all of life, even in, your personal life, is to have that consistency. And that's really what reconditioning takes, is having that consistency. And Rapid helps provide that as well for the dealers.
Yes, sir. Yeah, I think that consistency is key, and repetition is key, right? Repetition is the mother of skill, right? And you do something over and over again, and you know what good looks like, right? You want to continue to do it. It's no different. You said in your personal life, right? If you want to lose weight and you don't see a lot of results in the beginning, but you're consistent, right? You get up, you go to the gym. It's not going to happen overnight. I think that if you stay consistent, you'll see results, and that's same thing with reconditioning.
Gentlemen, if I could do a lightning round with both of you, Dennis first, and then Josh to kind of bring it home. Here we are in the middle of the second quarter. We're still second week or so in May. Um, Biggest opportunities for general managers, those who are watching the session right now in reconditioning. We've talked about better visibility. Your thoughts as to what it's going to take between now and the balance of the year for the general managers watching this. Take about a minute each. I'll start with Dennis McGinn and then over to Josh DeYoung.
Sure. Uh, Thank you, Ted. Well, my whole world ever since my HP days and things have all rotated around workflows. Everything's a workflow. I learned that from the car business, really, from the things that Deming did after World War II, blah blah. So, and at HP we took that on and said, how are we going to make calculators and computers and things like that? And it's all a workflow. Everything that the GM does is some kind of workflow too. So F and I, new cars, used car sale, they're all different workflows. Well, how do you decide where to put your emphasis, or where do you ask your people to really do a better job delegating? Well, you gotta know it. Well, it's a real problem if you try and figure it out yourself. You got to use these tools, and like I mentioned, Rapid is certainly one. This certainly one where you can take multiple workflows now and start to let the AI do the heavy lifting for you. Let it do the data analysis, and then use tools like this to say here's the execution things you need to focus on, and so that you don't have to try and do it all. I mean, I've seen some ghastly things that GMs have tried to do to figure out how to convert every incoming lead, opportunity, incoming call. How are we doing on that? Well, it's like a mind bending thing to try and analyze all that information to see if your BDC is operating properly. Well, again, you got to have the right cars. You got to have them ready. They've got to be reconditioned. You got to have stuff to sell. But all this has a higher level now. We learned a lot from Rapid Recon about what it takes to get consistency in processes and continuous process improvement. Well, we're going to push this up to another level, of which Recon is definitely one, but a GM has other workflows to worry about. So I think there are things that are going to happen in the industry now. We're going to be part of that can give them some headroom So they're not just fighting fires all week. And at the end of the week, not just saying, "Oh, I didn't get really anything done." I hear a lot of that.
Josh DeYoung, I'll give you the last word. Rapid Recon.
Yeah, I'd say the same thing we said earlier, right? Let's get back to the basics. Let's focus on consistency and accountability. If you're using our solution, thank you. That doesn't mean we stop there, right? If there's things that we need to look at, let's focus on it. Let's dive deeper. If you're not on our solution, let's say you're using nothing or you're using another piece of software, we'd love to have a conversation with you, right? At the end of the day, the best software is the one that's being used. And that's, I feel very strongly about that. So if you want to have a conversation, don't hesitate to reach out to me. You can reach out to me via LinkedIn, or you can go to rapidrecon.com. I'd love to have a conversation with you and see how we can help.
All right, there we have it. Dennis McGinn and Josh DeYoung, thank you so much for all you do for the industry at Rapid Recon. Everybody could visit Rapid Recon on the web. You just heard it, rapidrecon.com. And great news, everybody. So, Dennis and Josh, thank you so much for all you do.
Thank you, Ted.
Thank you, Ted. We appreciate it.
The leaders in Recon, everybody. Rapid Recon here with us today at the Fixed Ops Roundtable.